Hello, especially for the Dirty Secrets channel.
Lily Chen stood before her canvas, a storm of crimson and gold that had art critics raving. Through the windows of her Soho loft, Manhattan's evening lights created their own artwork against the darkening sky. A glass of untouched champagne rested nearby, celebrating her third consecutive sold-out exhibition. To another triumph, her agent had toasted earlier, as cameras flashed and collectors competed for her attention. Yet, as Lily stared at her creation, she felt nothing. The hollow sensation that had been growing inside her chest for months now threatened to consume her. Her paintings, violent explosions of color critics called raw emotional landscapes, betrayed nothing of the emptiness within their creator. She pressed her palm against the dried paint, feeling its texture. She remembered the fury with which she'd created it, but couldn't recall why she'd been angry. Like so much of her life, the emotion felt borrowed, performed rather than lived. Her phone buzzed with congratulatory messages she couldn't bring herself to read. Instead, she called Danny, the only friend who remembered Lily before she became Lily Chen. "I need to get out," Lily said. "Somewhere nobody knows me." Morning arrived with vengeful brightness. Lily's head throbbed as consciousness returned in painful fragments. Bass-heavy music, lights flashing across unfamiliar faces, drinks that tasted of licorice and something else, something that made the world tilt pleasantly sideways. She remembered Danny abandoning her around midnight, and then... nothing. A black hole where memories should be. Lily groaned, rolling onto her side. The motion sent a sharp sting through her right wrist. She raised her arm, squinting against the sunlight, and froze. There, on the delicate skin of her inner wrist, was a small tattoo, fresh, swollen, and completely unfamiliar. A minimalist line drawing of a bird in flight, breaking free from what looked like a music note. "What the hell?" she whispered, fingers trembling as they traced the dark lines. She had no tattoos. Had never wanted one. Had certainly never planned to get one during a blackout night. Yet something about the image triggered a distant unease, like the shadow of a nightmare you can't quite recall upon waking. Tattoo parlor was closed when Lily arrived. The artist's name on the business card in her pocket, ink by Xavier, matched the sign above the door, but nothing jogged her memory. She slumped against the brick wall, staring at the bird on her wrist. The longer she looked, the more familiar it seemed, not from last night, but from somewhere deeper in her past. That's when it hit her. The same bird had been on the album cover. His album cover. The memory crashed through her carefully constructed defenses. Julian Reed, the singer-songwriter who'd been on the verge of stardom when she met him in college. Julian with his hypnotic eyes and dangerous smile. Julian whose music had once been her entire world. "You inspire me, Lily Flower," his voice echoed in her mind, using the pet name she'd tried to forget. "Nobody understands me like you do." She remembered now, the bird breaking free from the music note had been his signature, his brand before he became the sensation he was today. Before he'd left her broken and hollow. Lily slid down the wall, her heart racing. She hadn't thought about Julian in years, had deliberately excised him from her narrative. Why would she get his symbol tattooed on her skin? Back in her loft, Lily tore through storage boxes she hadn't opened since moving to New York. At the bottom of the third box, she found it. A shoebox filled with mementos she'd been unable to throw away. Concert tickets. Photos. Handwritten lyrics on cocktail napkins. And a small, worn journal, her diary from those years. Lily's hand shook as she opened it, reading entries that felt written by a stranger. March 4th. Julian says my paintings could be album covers someday. When he looks at my art, I feel seen for the first time. April 17th. Had another fight. He says my work is becoming too independent, not the style he wants for his brand. Why can't I just listen? May 30th. Julian brought flowers after destroying my portfolio yesterday. Says he was just pushing me to be better. Maybe he's right, the pieces weren't good enough. Page after page documented a slow erosion of self, a young artist gradually surrendering her vision to a man whose charisma masked cruelty. The final entry hit her like a physical blow. August 12th, hospital again. Accidental overdose, they're calling it. Julian was there when I woke up, crying, saying he couldn't live without me. But when the nurse left, he whispered that if I ever told anyone about the fight, he'd make sure nobody in the industry would touch my work again. I believe him. I have to get out before there's nothing left of me. Lily closed the journal, memories flooding back with nauseating clarity. The writer's retreat she told everyone she was attending had actually been rehab. The amicable breakup had been her desperate escape after Julian had pushed her downstairs during an argument about her art. And through it all, she'd kept his secrets, had protected his rising star even as he'd nearly extinguished hers. The following days passed in a fog as Lily's carefully constructed reality crumbled. Each recovered memory brought fresh waves of shame. How she'd believed she deserved the abuse, how she'd covered for him, how she'd eventually buried it all so deeply she'd convinced herself it had never happened. She canceled meetings and ignored calls, instead spending hours staring at her paintings with new eyes. The violent emotions she channeled into her work, the rage and pain critics found so compelling, suddenly made terrible sense. Her art hadn't been an escape from her past. It had been her past screaming to be acknowledged. Tattoo throbbed on her wrist like an accusation. She considered having it removed, but something stopped her. Perhaps it was time to stop erasing her own history. She took out her phone and searched Julian's name. His latest arena tour was selling out worldwide. His newest girlfriend, a young painter barely out of art school, smiled adoringly beside him. Lily recognized that smile. She'd once worn it herself. The VIP pass felt heavy as Lily navigated backstage corridors after Julian's New York show. Her agent had connections. A single call had secured her access. Each step closer to his dressing room sent her heart hammering against her ribs. She nearly lost her nerve when she heard his laugh, that same warm, honeyed sound that had once made her feel like the most important person in the world. Then she thought of the girl in the photos, of her own lost years, of the tattoo she couldn't remember getting but now couldn't imagine removing. She knocked. When Julian opened the door, his expression shifted from irritation to shock to a carefully composed smile in the span of seconds. "Lily Flower," he said smoothly. What a surprise. He'd aged well, fame polishing his edges into something even more beautiful and untouchable. But beneath the designer clothes and practiced charm, she saw him clearly now, the insecurity that fueled his cruelty, the emptiness he'd once filled with her devotion. "We need to talk," she said, her voice steadier than she'd expected. Inside his dressing room, surrounded by the trappings of the success he'd built while she'd been rebuilding herself, Lily rolled up her sleeve and showed him the tattoo. "I don't remember getting this," she said. "But I remember everything else now." Julian's eyes narrowed. "That was a lifetime ago, Lily. We were kids. I wasn't well back then. You were well enough to know exactly what you were doing," she replied. "Well enough to threaten me into silence." "What do you want?" he asked, watchful now. "Money? Press? Is this some kind of blackmail?" The question stung worse than she'd anticipated. Even now, he couldn't imagine she had any purpose beyond what she could give or take from him. "I want nothing from you," she said quietly. "I came to give you something instead." She reached into her bag and removed a small package wrapped in tissue paper. Inside was a miniature canvas, a painting of the same bird from her tattoo, but the music note was shattered, the bird soaring free. "I forgive you," she said. "Not for your sake, but for mine. I've carried this for too long." Julian stared at the painting, something unreadable shifting behind his eyes. "Lily, I never meant—" "It doesn't matter what you meant," she interrupted. "Matters what you did. And what I did by staying silent." She turned to leave, but his hand caught her wrist, not roughly, but with a desperate urgency that once would have made her heart leap. "You could ruin me with this," he said softly. "Why wouldn't you?" Lily gently pulled her arm away. "Because I'm not you," she replied. and I'm done letting you define who I am. 3 months later, Lily unveiled her new collection. Gone were the chaotic explosions of color, replaced by intricate pieces that critics called a revelation in emotional honesty. The center of the exhibition hung a large canvas, a woman composed of fragmented memories, piecing herself back together. From her wrist flew a bird, no longer bound to a music note but to the woman herself, not escaping but returning. Tattoo on Lily's wrist had healed completely now. Sometimes she still woke from dreams of those college days, heart racing with remembered fear. But increasingly she woke with something else: compassion for the girl she had been, pride in the woman she had become. In her most recent diary, the first she'd kept since those dark days, she wrote, "I used to think healing meant forgetting. Now I understand it means remembering without being consumed. The ink on my skin remains, but its meaning has changed. Like me, it tells a different story now."
Thank you for watching. If you liked the story, like, subscribe to the channel and share with your friends. Thank you.